During one bright summer day, we meet a boy who has now grown up into an ultra Chad, busy staring at beach as he's the only man around. His name is Jung Soo-yeon, a 22-year-old returning home fresh from the army. However, while taking up the job as a lifeguard, he gets startled by a childhood friend of his, who begins teasing him about checking out girls. Regardless, it's revealed that she's Han-bada, only 1 year older than Soo-yeon. After their brief encounter, she begins to leave him alone and heads back down to the beach, confirming to Soo-yeon that she's heading back to work. But before leaving, she happily smiles and sends her regards, reminding him to do well and to not slack off. Time then quickly passes by, as being the only man on the beach is actually quite hard work. At lunch, he heads back home to the small town that he once grew up in. Upon reaching his destination, Soo-yeon announces his arrival, where he quickly surprises a lady. Once the lady hears his footsteps, she begins running to him. As such, the first things out of her mouth are the words, "Good job." It's also then revealed that this blue-eyed white dragon is Jang Meju, a housewife. Like in most anime, I too was surprised, as she's supposed to be over 50 years old, but looks like she's 20. Nevertheless, she lets him know that it's lunchtime and today is a day where she has grilled multiple mackerels. She then continues on by claiming that it's going to be very delicious and couples it by asking if he too will think it's delicious. But of course, Soo-yeon stutters at the sight of her twin dragons, so he mutters saying, "Sure, it will be, I guess." With him fully nervous, he uses his phone as distraction, but gets saved as the white dragon orders him to tell someone named Eri that her meal is ready. As such, he whips out his iPhone and hurriedly calls her, only for Eri to not answer any of his calls. Apparently, Soo-yeon is used to it, as he begins to think to himself that she once again is hanging up on him on purpose. Now with fists clenched, he turns around and heads out to go hunt for Eri. Meanwhile, Jang Meju flashes the thought of the two once again not getting along. Nonetheless, he heads straight back to the beach, only to now find the entire area bustling with new people. With the resurgence of the area and now not being the only man, he starts to realize that the place has actually changed quite a bit without him. But most of all, Soo-yeon claims that the one who changed the most of all is this girl. It's then revealed that this sun-kissed beauty is actually the girl he's looking for. As such, Soo-yeon crosses his arms and tells Eri to wake up. She doesn't even budge after multiple attempts, so he makes a face like I do, when I realize I am bottom fragging as a duelist. Thus, he forcefully removes her magical hat, where it's leaked that she actually has no face at all. However, with our skilled editor, we are able to finally see and meet the face of Eri, who's exactly the same age as Soo-yeon. Anyways, Soo-yeon begins to berate her, as Eri hasn't changed at all over the years, where she's always at the beach slacking off. He continues on by explaining that lunch is ready, but before he could finish, she storms off away from him. Now, if you look closely, you'll realize he's not actual mad, but he's busy looking at something else, if you know what I mean. Nevertheless, he channels his inner boomer self as he begins to reminisce about the past again. A flashback then occurs where we are brought back to the same beach, but this time there's a huge boat welcoming the area. It's at this time we find out that Soo-yeon is about to leave. However, there are 3 girls with him. One of them is a young Eri, who's already tearing up, asking Soo-yeon not to go. At the same time, the rest of the girls begin to crowd around him, as if he's the weekend. Anyways, one of the girls also end up crying, reminding Soo-yeon to actually call her often while away. It then turns out that there was supposed to be another girl saying goodbye named Sei, but Eri lets him know that she left quickly. Regardless, when it was time to leave, all Soo-yeon could do was wave while the girls looked on. It was exactly 7 years ago that marked the day since he left his childhood home, as he left to chase his dreams of becoming a swimming athlete in the city. There, he battled every day against all odds against fierce competition. However, disaster struck right when he was about to graduate. It's revealed that his parents perished due to a tragic ship accident, causing the ship to blow up. Now, with no family left, the only person that showed up to the funeral was Dragon Lady Jang Meju. It was then he had to give up on swimming, as he had to join the army instead. Soo-yeon then had fond memories of being in the military, as he was always lucky to be somehow always in the waters. In the end, he was able to fully complete his service, so he headed home. There he was welcomed by Meju, while Eri stood far away. It's at this point that Eri has started to become cold, not like her usual clingy self. Meanwhile, we learn that she and Sei also came to the city for university when she turned 20. Nonetheless, now back at home, the first thing Soo-yeon did was take up the job of a lifeguard, as he wanted to not be a burden to the family of Eri, as they took him in with no questions asked. However, ever since his arrival, Eri has become stone cold, not like his nuts. However, one night, Soo-yeon realized the one bad thing that could happen while living in a lodge, and that is specifically being next door neighbors to couples, as they are apparently very busy during the night. Thus, one night, a sleepless Soo-yeon had enough of the same couple making sussy sounds every night. So first thing in the morning, he created a huge sign, letting his neighbors know that there isn't any soundproofing. Unfortunately for Suyeon, Eri and her mom found it before the couple did, so they removed it. So the next night, Suyeon storms out of his room only to accidentally be met by the blue-eyed white dragon herself. Now quickly changing his mood at the sight of Miju, he starts off by asking her if something is wrong. But the sounds of their next-door neighbor were too strong, and the two were not able to overcome them. As such, Suyeon decides to leave, although fully flustered. So he runs off outside, but things begin to take a turn, and it looks like we are turning into Culture Alley. Later, we find Suyeon by himself at the beach. There, he begins thinking about Miju, unable to believe a bombshell like her is actually double his age. Now busy sussy thinking about his childhood's friend's mom, he notices someone off in the distance. Upon closer look, he realizes it Eri by herself near the water. So he goes up and startles her, asking if she ran away because of all the couples trying to become one. However, she straight up ignores him, totally annoyed at her peace being disturbed by Suyeon. She then continues to storm off back to the lodge against Suyeon's well-placed advice. Eventually, he gets enough of her attitude, so he finally confronts her and asks if he ever did anything wrong to her. He continues on, asking why she's been like this for a while now, although she does not initially respond. Eventually, she kicks a rock and replies by acting like she doesn't know what he meant. Nevertheless, she continues to ignore him, as the only thing he could do now is watch her storm off once again. Afterwards, as Suyeon heads off to wander more, he encounters a couple and overhears their conversation. The girl asks why he went to sea abruptly, only for the guy to reply by saying he wanted to sightsee. As Suyeon got closer to the couple, he realizes that the two lovebirds are actually the same ones from the lodge. Finally, after completing some more laps, he arrives back home, hoping that everything would be quiet now. But to be expected, he again hears some sussy noise. Now completely over it multiple times, he barges straight to Miju's room to tell her to put up the notice again. Suddenly, he stops right in his tracks when he realizes the couple from earlier is still out in the city. Furthermore, he uses his detective hat to figure out that the window is actually connected to Miju's and Eri's room. Now imagine keeping your window wide open while doing something sussy. Anyways, Suyeon decides to investigate the situation, as the sounds got louder and louder the closer he crept. Suyeon's curiosity then takes a hold of him as he decides to really check what may be happening inside. Thus, he opens the door slightly and proceeds to peek in. His eyes then widen as Miju's trap card has been activated. It was at this moment Suyeon realized that White Dragon herself, Miju, has been muttering his name the entire time. Another timely flashback then occurs back in his school days. There we meet a young Eri again, as a teacher is introducing her to the class as a new transfer student. It was then that Eri met Hanbada and also Chinsei. But just like destiny, even with a million empty seats, the teacher tells Eri to sit beside Suyeon. Surprisingly, unlike our current dynamic, Eri was actually very nice, as she was the first one to say hello. But Eri won't be bothered, as Suyeon at this age was too worried about cooties. Regardless, she ends up getting frustrated as she attempted multiple times to make friends with him. So just like anyone would do, she puts him on the spot by shouting that she doesn't want to sit with him. With the turntables now turning, she even insults him and calls him ugly. As such, the two end up fighting in front of the entire class, only for the teacher to save the day. Thus, the two get punished, so they are forced to walk home together, while holding hands all the way through. Suyeon then gets bullied by the other guys as they tease him about the two suiting each other well. Even Bada shows up out of nowhere, quick to agree with the guys, claiming that the two actually suit each other for real. In the end, both Sei and Bada pass them while handing out a wink saying the two should hold hands again the next day. Eventually, they make it home, where Suyeon meets Jang Meiju for the first time. It was at this part of the story where Suyeon's dreams began to be invaded by the ageless dragon. Regardless, Eri's mom begins to swoon at the thought that she already brought home a boyfriend during her first day at school. Suyeon's memories then fast forward, where he explains from that day on both him and Eri spent every happy and sad time together. It was as if they became family. But then the Sussy Nation attacked 7 years later.